We're off to a cool start in my Texas garden, but we're headed for another spicy afternoon as the trend has gone. It really feels as though we have skipped spring altogether, but it's time to grow some food. So in this March garden update, I'll share what I'm growing, including my citrus and fig trees, what I'm planting in the vegetable garden, and how I plan to be successful so that you can too. I'm Scott from New Garden Road, always out here to inform, inspire, and elevate you. Encouraging biodiversity and restoring habitat is my mission, one garden at a time. The remnants of my fall and winter plantings are quickly waning, but I do have some things that are still growing and I'm harvesting off of regularly, including the kale, which is behind me under this shade cloth. Now it's the time of year when you might start looking for some pests on your kale and other brassicas, such as broccoli, cabbage, collard greens. And one of those pests in particular showed up yesterday morning for the first time by my eye, and that is the infamous harlequin bug. Now this is in the stink bug family. They're pretty ornamental in nature. They're red and black. They're kind of interesting looking, but they are just the bearer of bad news in the garden this time of year, because this is a pest that reproduces so rapidly, it's very difficult to control. And really the best course of action when you start to observe it in your garden is harvest what you can and be prepared to pull your crops that are affected by this insect and move on. For me, that includes my kale plants and my Ethiopian kale, which is really more of a mustard, but that one is really well adapted to my growing region and I love to grow it. You can see it behind me. It's also going to flower. Now, one of the tricky parts is that I love to save seeds. And so with the Ethiopian kale being a climate adapted crop, one that can take our warmer winters, our drought conditions, and it can be highly productive as a leafy green, I've really sought to save the seeds and select for resilience in my garden. In the meantime, it's likely to get infested with these harlequin bugs, which is not pretty, not great, but it's something that I'm gonna do, taking one for the team, saving some seeds so that I can share those with you. And I've got some wonderful root crops that are still sizing up, including some carrots and beets. I love growing these through the cool season and they begin to mature in early spring, and I have been harvesting off of them. These selections will continue to grow well as things warm up, but generally by the end of May, you want to have these pulled pretty rapidly in my Austin, Texas garden. I've also got a big stand of bulbing onions and garlic. Now, the garlic was planted in November. These are generally, slow to mature. It takes about 5 months. The bulbing onions, a little bit quicker, but those were planted from sets or transplants in January. And I'm anticipating that both of these crops will be mature and ready to harvest in the month of May. One thing that I will say is it pays to be strategic in your plantings. Sometimes we like to mix and match and plant things here and there, but for me, I have really found it to be a good course of action to plant my alliums all together in one raised bed, because not only do they require similar fertilizer and moisture elements, but then they will be ready to harvest at approximately the same time, which means I can go in all at once, amend my soil and plant something else. I had a beautiful stand of lettuce growing and I was harvesting regularly from that. I just wish we could have a longer lettuce season here in Texas, but it can be so difficult to get them established. Even in the fall, as the temperatures start to break, we're still talking about 90 or 100 degrees in the month of October. So then we get into November and we start to establish these plantings. It can take longer for them to grow because the days are shorter and the temperatures finally start to cool down. And then we get this Arctic cold front that comes in, gives us a test. So I protected my lettuce and all my other crops and got through that. And then before you know it, in February, we were in the 80s, and now in March, the 90s. So that makes it very difficult to grow some tender leafy lettuce greens. I had to wrap up the season. They were starting to bolt, and so I recently have taken those to the compost pile, but I have followed up with some new plantings. If you follow my content regularly, it should be no surprise that I'm really stoked about planting from saved seeds. Last season, I was able to to do pretty well. I've got some bowling red okra that I saved, and also some long beans, the Chinese red noodle, and I've seeded both of those out in one of the raised beds over my shoulder following my lettuce plants, and those haven't sprouted yet. It's only been a couple of days, so I'm keeping the seed beds evenly moist and just really making sure that they're not drying out, and that is key for their germination. But these crops are very adapted to growing in the heat, and with regular moisture you're going to get more productivity, but they can certainly take, you know, periods of drought, low water use, especially if you have a healthy soil base and you've got a good thick layer of mulch on your raised bed. Other crops that I've planted recently and have sprouted already are my corn. I've got 2 raised beds this season. I'm really going big with the Cherokee White Eagle. This is a dent corn, and I want to, you know, let this one dry on the stalk, and then I'm going to harvest this corn and do some nixtamalization. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is a great food that you can store and eat on through the winter. Beyond that, I've got some melons growing, and not just any melons. I'm talking about cucumber melons. These are really, you know, just like cucumbers. When you harvest them at an immature state, they have been, you know, growing for centuries in other cultures and saved for their specific qualities. They are better adapted to growing in a hot climate. Unlike our regular cucumbers, they don't turn bitter when it gets hot. And that can give you some advantages, help you to extend your season, grow some healthy, nutritious, nourishing food. Along with those, I've got some Suyo long cucumbers, some true cucumbers. Those also do pretty well into the heat. I love those. So lots of cucumbers coming my way, hopefully. And also watermelons. I've got these strawberry watermelons growing. These are an heirloom from Florida. Said to do well in areas with high humidity, which that's what we got. Now, yesterday I planted some more saved seeds from last season, and I'm really excited about my southern peas. I'm growing a variety called Big Red Ripper. I've actually grown these for probably the past 7 years. This is a really productive southern pea. You know, it grows out, you know, 6-7 feet or more, and just puts on round after round of these long pea pods that you can harvest fresh and bring into the kitchen and cook up, or you can let them dry on the plant, harvest the dry pods, and then you've got some food that you can store for more long term, and then cook up and eat when you're ready. Another planting that I'm really stoked about is the morning glories. I put some seeds in along the east side of my house where I've got a long trellis. It's about 22 feet long, and I did a couple of different varieties. So one is the exotic love vine, which I've never really grown, and the flying saucer, which is one of my all-time favorites, a really big flower. So I'm looking forward to a show of flowers, beautiful butterflies, pollinators. I remember distinctly seeing the leafcutter bees, you know, working into the morning glories each morning, and that's just a wonderful moment to have. So I like to grow some flowers in the garden as well. I thought it might be cool to share with you my seed box and how I've got things organized, what I'm planning to plant. Here's the Cherokee White Eagle that I saved last season. This is a beautiful seed. I just got to show you this one. I'm not going to show you every single one, I promise. Look at that. Beautiful purple, blue, and white. That's a beautiful corn. Yeah, so along with those, I got lots of basil that I'm going to put in. There's so many varieties of basil that you can grow, and the Tulsi is one that we like to make teas from. And then here are some watermelons. I haven't planted these yet, but I just have so many varieties of watermelon that I want to plant. And the purple long bean, I'm going to get those in hopefully today, along with some warm season greens. What else we got here? Flowers. We've planted some globe amaranth and some of these celosia varieties. These are really strong throughout the season. They'll grow into the fall, really take the heat. We even saved some seeds from these as well. You got to grow some flowers in your garden. Check out this elephant head amaranth. That one is really unique. Here's the pink zinnia that we've got growing in with some of our watermelon, but I have so many varieties of zinnias. These are another great one for our area. Totally take the heat. I love the giant zinnias. The purple one's probably my all-time favorite. gets easily 2 to 3 feet tall, requires some staking. They will grow throughout the summer into the fall. Butterflies, hummingbirds, pollinators, cut flowers. Oh my gosh, love zinnias. What about these? The torch Mexican sunflower. You want to talk about something that looks like it's got batteries included? This is a bright flower. This illustration doesn't do it justice, but I'm going to get some of those going. Marigolds, those are another good selection this time of year. These are, what are these? I tried these last season. I didn't quite get them going. The spider flower, yeah, that looks really amazing. I'd like to get those growing as well. So many things in here, as well as some cosmos. Got a shout out to cosmos. This is a great summer flower for Central Texas and similar growing zones. But either way, I just wanted to show you a little bit of my process, my organization. You can see how I've got things like grouped together, and that just helps me stay organized. I also document on a spreadsheet. That's a great way to keep track of your plantings. I have like a diagram that I made of my garden so that I know what I've planted, where, and when, because as you can see, I'm growing tons of stuff. Oh, last thing, got to show you my cucumber melons. Shout out to Cucumber Shop. Oh yeah, Carosello Lacessi striped. I've got about 16 of these that I've started, and I'm hoping to save seeds. This is a delicious cucumber melon. Very similar to a cucumber, nice and crispy. Shout out to Jay for cultivating these, helping these stay on the planet so that we can enjoy them. Yeah. Another key thing to do this time of year is tend to your perennial herbs. And I've got a lot of those growing. Many of them are in containers. Did you know that you can grow a lot of herbs in containers? I've got oregano, thyme, rosemary, lavender. You can do all those as well as some seasonal herbs. Getting some basil started now would be great. And with the perennial ones that are growing for many seasons, I'm pruning them, accordingly. They need a little bit of trimming up, and I'm giving them a healthy dose of compost. I use the Happy Frog soil conditioner, but I'll just sprinkle a little bit of that in the container or around the base of the plant after I've given it a pruning, and that will help it build back and encourage it launching into the next season. So before you know it, you'll be using those fresh herbs in your kitchen. Now my citrus trees are off to a fantastic start. I have 24 that are growing in containers behind me, and I've recently, the beginning of March, I fertilized them and I gave them some compost. So it was the Happy Frog soil conditioner and the MicroLife 624 fertilizer. So something heavier in nitrogen, really good for those citrus. I saw them respond pretty quickly. Tons of blooms. Most of the trees have been blooming here for a couple of weeks, and fingers crossed I'll get some really good fruit set. Now, it's not uncommon for the citrus trees to drop some of those fruit subsequently, because they really just bloom as profusely as possible, set up as many fruit as they can, and then they'll level load as the season goes on. So if you're growing some citrus or you want to find some at a local nursery, I encourage you to get out there and do so and feed them. You're going to want to feed them throughout the season. Right now is a good time for them to bloom and set their fruit, because it generally takes around 9 months for that to mature, which ends up being a fall or even winter harvest season. Now, some of my citrus aren't flowering right now, but I'm not worried about these because I'm talking about my kumquats and my key limes. Both of those are smaller fruits, and they tend to fire up and set fruit more consistently throughout the growing season, so multiple times, and it doesn't take as long for those fruit to mature either, generally around 6 months. And I'm really excited for fig season. I've got 3 different fig trees, and one of them has 2 different varieties of figs growing on it. These are all in 7-gallon containers, and I'm going to keep them in these containers. I intend to grow them long term that way. The only thing that I did for these was I gave them a healthy dose of that compost. You don't need to fertilize your fig trees. They don't really respond that well to heavy fertilization, but compost, microbes, that's exactly what you need. So these are all leafing out beautifully. They look wonderful, and I can't wait to get some of these fresh figs. The varieties that I'm growing are the Raspberry Latte, Violet de Bordeaux, Smith, and holy smokes. Shout out to Figbeard for bringing these wonderful varieties to my garden. I've also had a good season growing mushrooms on my front porch. Did you know that you can do that with spent mushroom blocks? I participate in the block rescue program that's put on and organized by Central Texas Mycology. I'll take these blocks and I'll put them in a shady spot up front, make sure they get a little bit of humidity. They're under a dome, or I'm misting around them, and they will go on to fruit at least once or more. I typically will harvest and then take that block of mushroom substrate and toss it into my compost bin. That can help me build soil in the future. So this is a great program for you to pursue if you need to build soil, or you just want to grow some amazing culinary mushrooms. Now that the temperatures are warming up, it's less likely to go that well. You really need temperatures that are below 85 consistently. Cool mornings, which we still have. I'm still seeing some pinning and the mushrooms forming on some of the blocks, but as it gets hotter, it's going to be less likely to occur successfully outside. Some of those varieties, like the oyster, can do a little bit better, but this is still a great option for you. You could look at doing it inside if you want, but for me, the season for mushroom gardening is starting to wrap up, and now I can take all those blocks and start to build my garden soil. I want to give you a few tips for being successful this season. Whether or not you're dealing with extreme temperatures and drought conditions like I am in my garden, focus on the soil. Build a healthy living soil. Adding compost ahead of new plantings is essential. Also, don't leave your soil bare. Whether or not you're implementing cover crops such as southern peas or buckwheat, those are great for the warm season. Add a thick layer of mulch. Always mulch around your plants. You don't want to have bare soil. Go out in your garden and put some mulch on it right now. And make sure that you're planting the right types of crops at the right time in the right location. So in my vegetable garden, I'm looking at these warm season annuals like okra, long beans, southern peas, corn, even cucumbers, squash, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers. Those are all really good to go right now. But in my growing region, if I wait and plant those out in another month, that's going to be a little bit late for some of those things. The cucumber, squash, tomatoes, those need to get in right now. So get in while the getting's good. But don't be planting things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, or radishes, even the carrots and beets. I think it's just too late for those cool season crops. I encourage you to seek out a local planting guide with your extension service or master gardeners. They can give you some good recommendations for planting specifically in your area. We have a good one for Travis County, and that's what I have gone off of for years. In addition to that, consider some of those crops that might be lesser known, such as the warm season greens. I love Malokia and Callaloo, the amaranth varieties. Those are great for healthy, nutritious greens to grow into the heat of summer. And consider drip irrigation, whether or not you have a system like I do where you can, automate that and be really efficient in your application. You want to promote deeper soakings of water less frequently. You could do that with a soaker hose. That would be a really cheap and easy way to get it going. But moisture and consistent moisture at the right level is going to be essential. That combines with, planting the right thing at the right time and a good layer of mulch, protecting that healthy soil. And then lastly, shade cloth. That can be really beneficial if you're getting an extreme heat wave, whether or not you're establishing new plants. Even if they're heat-loving plants, they may need a buffer. If it's going to be 95 degrees, I'm going to put some shade cloth over my cucumbers and tomatoes. Consider those points, and I hope you are able to get out in the garden, have some fun, and grow some healthy, nutritious food. Yeah. Thank you. Can you see me? Failing. Heat. Seed box. Now check out more awesome gardening videos on my channel, like this video, and follow New Garden Road for weekly content. You can grow your own food. Keep it organic.